Hi Year 3, welcome back to our second math lesson of the week. So we started looking at subtraction on Monday, so today we're going to carry on that, but we're going to move on to doing a bit of crossing. So just to refresh our memory before we get going with it, because most of you will probably want to do column subtraction whilst you're doing your questions today. Even if it's not written like that, that's absolutely fine. So just thought I'd give you a little reminder on how we set that out before we get started. So if we are crossing a 10, so if we have a number in our ones column, which where the top number here is smaller than the bottom number, so 2 ones is less than 7 ones. So in this case, because my 2's on the top, I will have to exchange. I'll need to borrow a 10 from the tens column and move it across. Now, as we know, if we were doing this using base 10, I would cross out one of my 10 sticks, I would draw 10 ones. And then from that, I would then cross out some of those. I'd cross 7 of those to find my answer. But we don't need to do that if we know this method. So I've crossed out my 6. So that's the same as crossing out your one of your 10 sticks. So that would leave me with 5 10s now. So I've taken one away. And I've moved that one onto my ones column. So now I have 12 ones altogether. So if I'm doing 12, take away 7, that will give me 5. So then when I move on to this column, I don't have 6 anymore. I've got 5. So it's really important that we cross this out and make it really clear. So now I'll do 5 take away 3, which gives me 2, and 5 take away nothing, which is 5. So again, we do the same method when we move on to our tens column. If we're crossing 100, we're just on a different column. So for this one, I've got 8 take away 6, which is easy, and I know it's 2. I don't have to do any crossing for that, any exchanging. But here I've got 1 take away 4. Now again, 1 is less than 4, so we'll have to do an exchange for this one. So I cross out my 700s and make it into 600s, and I'm going to move that 100 onto this column. So now I've got 11. Okay, so 11 take away 4. So if we do 11 take away 4, we'll have 7. Now, again, I've got 6 instead of 7, so I've got 6 take away nothing is 6. So again, we touched on this, so we've done crossing 10, crossing 100, so now we're going to do all together. So here, we've got 15 take away 6. So my ones, my top number in the ones, is smaller than my bottom number. That means I need to exchange. So 5 is less than 6. So to do that, I'll cross out my 3 and make it into a 2. So now I've got 2 in this tens column. And I'll put that 10 here on the ones. So now I've got 15 ones. So 15 ones take away 6 would give me 9. So that's done. So now, remember, we've got 2 here now, not 3. So we've got 2 take away 3. Now we know we can't do that because, again, 2 is less than 3. So in order to do this one, we have to cross out our 100. So change 900s to 1 less, where it becomes 800. And then we move that 100 onto our tens column. So now, instead of having the 2 in this column, we'd have 12 because we've put that 100 on as well. So I've got the 1 and the 2, so I've got 12. So 12 take away 3 would give me 9 again. And 8 take away nothing gives me 8. So for these questions and for calculation, for calculating subtraction, you need to be really careful with your counting. I know some people find it really tricky when we're counting backwards. Just take your time and make sure, double check your counting, because otherwise, if you get that wrong, it kind of sends your whole answer out of order. So check that first. Your next tip is don't write the digits for the first calculation too big, so you have room to cross out and change the numbers. So what I mean by this is when I've written my first, the actual calculation, so when I've written 562, I've made them big enough so that I can see them clearly, but I've left some room so that I can fit my 5 and my 1 next to it, or my 6 here and my 1 there. So I've made sure that I've got room to write. So don't fill the whole square with your number. Otherwise, you're going to really struggle. If you do that and it gets a little bit crowded, or if you have to do a double exchange like you have over here, you can always write above, but do try and make sure it stays in that same column. So then you don't get confused and think that it belongs to a different column. It's really important, these little things, which will make it a lot easier when you are working out, so you don't make some silly mistakes just because of how you've presented your work. Okay, now, something which we have found quite tricky when we've been in class. So, what happens if the tens column has a 0 and I need to exchange? So what I mean by this is if in my ones column, I've got a number that's smaller than the one underneath, so 3 being smaller than 8, therefore I need to do an exchange, but I've got no 10s, so I can't exchange from the 10s column, so what do? Well, instead, I'm going to exchange from my 100 onto the 10s. So I had 700s, I've crossed it out, I've made it into 600, I've moved that onto here, and I put the 1 10 there. So now I have 10. You can see I've got a 1 and a 0, I've got 10 altogether. So then I'm going to exchange from my 10s again. So I cross out that 10, the whole 10, and I change it to 9, because 10 take away 1 would be 9, and then I move that 10 onto my 1s column. So now I've got 13. So 13 take away 8 gives me 5. Then I've got 9 take away 4 gives me 5. And 6 take away nothing gives me 6. So for this one, it's the same as doing this one up here. You just need to be aware that you set this out properly. Okay? So make sure it's your 10. Take 1 away. It won't just be a 1 or whatever. It will be, you've got 10, so now it's 9. So just be careful with that bit. Okay. Right, let's get on with some more subtraction for today then. So hopefully that little recap has helped. You might want to write down one of these examples just to remind yourself. And you can use this method whilst you do our maths work today. Okay, so today we are subtracting a 2-digit from a 3-digit number. And we are going to be crossing 100 today. So this is a bit we'll be focusing on today. Okay, so use base 10 to make the number 235. So you can do this, you can draw that if you want to. You don't have to. If you want, you could always just set it out into a column, or you could do it in your head if you can. So for the first one, it says complete the subtraction. 235 subtract 20. And then B is 235 subtract 30. So have a go at those questions. You may need to exchange, may not. Have a think. Okay, so for C, show how you can work out 235 take away 50 using base 10. So again, you can do the base 10, or you can draw it in a column. I don't mind which method you choose. And then if you can, either explain to someone around you or write a little sentence, how did you do it? 235 subtract 50. Then once you've done that, on to D. So it says complete the number sentences. 235 subtract 50, 235 subtract 70, 235 subtract 90. So again, you might want to use column method, you might want to draw base 10 or place value counters. Either way, I don't really mind. Question number 2. So complete the number sentences. 323 take away 60. So you've got 323 there. So you could use that to help you to answer this one. So what do you need to do? Where will you do an exchange from? How would you set that out? And for B, 712 subtract 40. So again, you've got place value counters this time. You can always cross those out and use that method to help you if you need to draw. Or you could use a column method, whichever one will help you to answer your question. So pause here and have a quick go at those ones. Okay, question 3. So Rosie says, you can't subtract 70 from 624 as you don't have enough 10s. So if we use her working out here, she's got 624 and she says there's not enough 10s in my 10s column to be able to subtract it, so I can't do it. Now Rosie is wrong. We know that, but how do we know that? So can you explain what she should do and how you know that she is wrong? So what does she need to do to be able to subtract 70 from 624? You can write me a sentence, you can show me the working out. I don't really mind. Number 4, right. I won't go through all these, but have a look at these questions. So you've got 8 questions there. I would suggest working out in a column method, but you can always draw them if that will help you more. Whichever way is best for you. Okay, number 5. So the answer to each of these subtractions is 358. Find the possible missing digits. So you've been given your starting number, you are subtracting a multiple of 10 each time, because I've got 0 ones, and it's only a 2-digit number, so it's always a multiple of 10, a number in the 10 times table. And your number is always 400 and something with 8 ones. So what will that 10 be in both of those numbers? You could start off systematically for this one. So if you had 408, what would I have to subtract to get the answer? Then you might work up and say, well, if I had 1 10, what about 2 10s, and work up from there. Naya is working out 524 subtract 80 in her head. She says the answer is 464. What mistake do you think that Naya has made? Now again, it says talk to a partner. You could always talk to someone at home, or you can write down your answer. I would like you to write down a sentence. If you have talked to someone, that's great. If not, don't worry about it. But please write down a sentence to explain what she has done wrong. You could even work out what she should have done to show yourself the correct answer as well. Again, number 7, we've got lots of different questions here. So have a look at these. Now, you've been given a number. You've been told you've got to subtract something from it to then get your answer. But we don't know what that number is. So how would you work this out? So have a think. If I've got 758 and I take something away to get 708, you could draw a number line you could count on from 708 up to 758. You could do a column subtraction. There's lots of different ways that you could do this. So have a think. What method would you need to use? Number 8. Amir is thinking of a number. If I subtract 20, I don't have to make an exchange. If I subtract 70, I have to make one exchange. So how many 10s could Amir's number have? Give reasons for your answer. So what this is asking you to do is to work out what the 10s could be for this to be right. So if I had 110, say. If I had 110 and I subtracted 20 from it, I don't have to do it. Would I have to do an exchange? Well, yes, I would, because 10 take away 20. Well, 20 is bigger than 10, so I would have to do an exchange for that one. So it can't be a number with 1 in the 10s column. So then we think, well, could it have 2 in the 10s column? Now, if I had 2 10s in that column, that would be 20. So I'd do 120 take away 20. Well, I could do that. I know I could do that. So I just work up from there. So first of all, work out which numbers could it be if you subtracted 20 and didn't have to exchange. There's quite a lot of answers to that one. But then you also need to work out from those numbers, if I subtract 70, which ones will I have to do an exchange with? So if I had 190 and I subtracted 70, I wouldn't have to do an exchange because 90 would be bigger than 70. So have a think, work out which numbers would answer the first part, which numbers would answer the second part, and then see which ones are on both of your lists to find your answer. That would be giving reasons for your answer, because it would show me how you've done your working out, how you've come to that conclusion. Okay, right, time for answers then. Again, I hope you've had a go at all of our questions today, and that you're ready to mark. So let's get going. So, question number 1. So your first two, quite straightforward. Then we get on to having to do some exchanging. So I've drawn out an example here. So if you were using base 10, as it asked you, so you had your 200, you had your 30 and your 5. So what I've done is, because I know I can't take away, I've only got 3 10s there, I can't take away 5 10s from it. So I've had to exchange. So I've crossed out one of my hundreds and I've drawn 10 10s down here. Then once I've drawn my 10 10s, now I can subtract my 50. So I've crossed out 5 of those 10s. So that would be 50 gone. So now I can see I've got 100, I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my answer will be 185. If you haven't worked it out like that, that's absolutely fine. Just wanted to demonstrate how that should be set out if you had done it in base 10. Okay, and here's your answer to your next few questions on D. and then down onto 2 and 3. So she was wrong because she said you couldn't subtract 70 from the number because it was smaller, but you could because you'd exchange from your hundreds onto your tens column, and then you'd have enough tens to subtract 70. Okay, and here are our answers. So pause so that you can mark those ones. So for question 6, Naya should have done 2 take away 8. So she should have done an exchange from the 100 to the tens. So she could have done it. But instead she didn't. She just did 8 take away 2. So she reversed those numbers around, which we know we can't do. We have to do an exchange. We can't just swap the numbers around to make it easier. Okay, again, pause so you can mark question 7, and then we'll have a chat about question 8. So there's quite a lot going on in this one. Okay, so for number 8, Amir's number could have had 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 tens. If he subtracts 20 from any of these numbers, the answer even would be a 0, a 1, 2, 3, or a 4. So as we said, if I had 120, take away 20 would be 100, 130, take away 20 would be 110, 140, take away 20 would be 120, and on and on. So those would be the numbers that would fit there. Then if these digits were in the tens column, you could then subtract 70. So 7 tens would be greater than these numbers, so you would need to exchange. Now, so 70 is bigger than 6. So then once I've got to 7 tens, 8 tens, or 9 tens, I wouldn't have to do an exchange, so those wouldn't be correct. So there's an example here so you can see. So if I did 134, subtract 20, it's 114. Whereas if I do 134, subtract 70, it's 64, because I can't do 3 take away 7, so I need to exchange 100. Right then, so that's our first proper look at exchanging for this week. So I hope you've had a good go at those and that you've found that okay. Remember, if you do get a bit stuck, you can always flick back. The explanation of how to do the methods will be on the beginning of most of these lessons, just as a little refresher. So if you do get a bit stuck, flick back to there, remind yourself of the method, and then you can carry on. I will see you on Friday for our next lesson. Bye.